Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 111 of the CUInsight Experience. This episode is brought to you by our friends at PSCU. We love having them on board as a sponsor and allowing us to get to do what we do and bring it all to you. As the nation's premier payments CUSO, the folks at PSCU proudly support the success of more than 1,500 credit unions. My name is Randy Smith. I'm one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and I'm lucky enough to have conversations with the amazing people who make credit unions great and bring them all to you. I get to pick their brains and see if we can't find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. My guest on today's show is Laura Campbell. Laura is the CEO of Farmers Insurance Federal Credit Union. This was my first chance to sit down with Laura virtually, of course, and have a conversation. I had heard so much good of the work that her and her team were doing at the credit union, and I was really looking forward to and glad to get her on the show for this conversation. There is a lot in this episode. We talked about running a seg-based credit union and the unique needs that may come from members. It was a cool part of the conversation, some things I had never thought about. We also talked about board relationships and that long-term strategic planning and staying the course. We talked about both team development and personal development. I will tell you, no matter where you are in your career journey, whether just starting out in credit unions or a current CEO, I think there's going to be something for everyone in this episode. Of course, we talked leadership lessons learned over Laura's career and those life hacks she's picked up along the way. And as always, we wrapped it up with some rapid fire question. Who is the person that came to mind when Laura hears the word success? What book does she think we all should read if we haven't yet? What was a young Laura Campbell like growing up? You'll have to keep listening to find out. So, without further ado, I give you my conversation with Laura Campbell. Enjoy. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it.
I am so looking forward to this. Doing a little bit of research, let's just say, on the old interwebs for our conversation, I came across a CEO message that you wrote from earlier in the year. Must have been a New Year's message, but I thought it was really interesting. There were a couple different things in it that really struck me as interesting. First of all, the growth that you've had at the credit union, and I think we'll get into that some about maybe if that's expanded your capacity. But something that really struck me was how this past year that we've all been through. I mean, we're still, I think it feels like for many of us, at least we're kind of getting towards the finish line. But,
exactly.
I mean, whether it was our teams, ourselves, your members, all of our members, it's been a physically, emotionally, just even financially, right? You're seeing that every day, year. How has Farmers Insurance FCU focused on the members' needs when these are needs that, quite honestly, have been different than maybe what we've experienced in the past, for a great many people?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. We got heavily into the PPP loan program because we have a lot of agents that have their accounts with us and borrow from us. So they were really interested in the PPP loans. So we did about $24 million of those loans pretty quickly. And of course, it was a struggle at first because we were approved by the SBA, but we had never gone through the process of doing a loan because of the way that the farmers agencies had been structured. So now that has changed. We could do SBA loans now, but we had to wait to get access. And oh my God, it felt like an eternity to get that access before so we missed the first portion. Okay. Those funds were gone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really fast. And we couldn't even get into the system. So that was a big portion. We worked closely with farmers to also implement some loan programs for the agents that were low interest or no interest to help them out as well. Overall, they did fairly well through the pandemic, fortunately, but that was our main focus was the agents and then also our members overall. We were waiving fees, deferring loan payments, and we had a number of members that asked for deferrals but never actually used them. And I think that was quite common across the industry.
I've talked to quite a few CEOs who said the same thing. And I think that goes back to like so many of us didn't know what was going to happen. And I think when we look back on it now, this recession has hit different parts of the population a lot harder than others, right? Like, I mean,
exactly.
So yeah,
exactly.
Nobody knew. There was a question that I'll tell you. It was one that I was struggling with myself the end of last year. And I feel like I'm a little bit further down this path now, but it's one that I've really been excited to ask. And it's that idea, like you talked about in quick order, having to learn, get the capacity to do the PPP loans and things like that. We all had to make these pivots last year.
Yes.
And
sure.
Some of them, I think long term, we're like, this is going to be a great thing for our credit union, how we serve members going forward and the such. But others were kind of that, we had to do things a certain way. And as things get back to whatever this normal is there anything that you've been doing to look at all the changes that happened over the past year and like say, okay, this is good. We need to keep doing that. Our members are going to have that expectation of that type of service. And on the other hand, that we needed that for that point in time being, but do we really need to focus on that now as things maybe start to get a little?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've taken in a ton of deposits. So from that perspective, we really struggled to bring in deposits over the last few years. Our deposit growth was like nothing.
Okay.
So to have this influx of deposits was really great. They're still coming in though. And so now we're kind of on the opposite end. So what we had done previously was bring in non-member deposits, because one of the things that we've prided ourselves on is to really offer great savings rates in particular to our members. And that, of course, has become more challenging now because we have all these deposits that we don't really need. So we've had to make a number of shifts. Our members, like a number of financial institutions, have been really paying their loans down. So even just to keep up, maintain the loan balance has been very challenging. So I don't know that there's anything that we're doing differently. It's just a different way of doing business from the perspective of we don't need to go get non-member deposits now. We need to let those flow out. We've always had pretty high loan demand. Our loan to share ratio had almost approached 120% at one point. So, and now it's down 80, 70, and that's really unusual for us. So now we're having to go out and get participations to fill in that gap, so it's a constant discussion among the team from a strategic perspective of, do we want to maintain these deposits and go out and fill in with other loans? Do we want to expand what we're offering? But we offer pretty much everything. We do commercial real estate. We do business loans for our members. We do mortgage loans. So we're looking at expanding some of what we're offering, but it's really trying to figure out how long the deposits are going to last.
Right. Yep.
Make sure that you're balancing everything from an ALM perspective. We've been fortunate that a lot of our loans have been variable over the years. So we can go out right now and purchase fixed rate mortgage loans without a problem. It doesn't, we're monitoring it, mind you, and managing it, but it isn't like we're in a position that we can't take those on. So we're very fortunate from that perspective, but still pushing ahead with the digital piece. That's not, we don't consider that our strong suit. We offer digital products, mobile banking, that type of thing. But we think the product could be so much better. So members could do things, because we have members across the country. So they obviously aren't always close to a branch.
I was going to say, dealing with agents, they can be everywhere, right? Like
everywhere.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So, evaluating those different services. We do shared branching through the co-op. So those are the options. But I'm sure you've heard before, it is very hard to explain that to your members, how it works, what they can do. So we're constantly trying to evaluate that and figure it out.
Absolutely. There was something you said about you and your team looking at that from a lending standpoint and trying to, how long are the deposits around? I think we're all watching consumer spending. Is that going to pick back up? A question that I had for you was this idea that, much of last year we were kind of in the putting out fires mode. And as you started to look, and I'm not saying you weren't looking long-term before, but like as you've started to, and your team has started to focus more on that long-term and think strategically, how do you find the space today? Have you had to kind of pull back from the putting out fires, I guess, today to think more strategically about what does this look like for us long term at the credit union?
I would say that for sure. You had your strategic plan, you were going along, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. And, you kind of had to you don't really throw it out the window, but you're trying to address things as they come up. So your members aren't having to wait or wonder what you're going to do. So, but our thing was keep pushing forward on the strategic plan, keep pushing forward. We don't want to change anything at this point. We'll just have to tweak some of the things. Liquidity has always been a big part of our plan, obviously, as I said before, because we struggled to bring in shares. So you change things a bit because the environment changes, but you still know at some point it's probably going to run off.
Right.
Because we've typically found that when the stock market goes up, our shares go out.
Okay.
And that has not happened this past year.
Right. Yeah. Just to scratch my own itch question, but was that something that like you and your board decided on? I mean, to make sure that you guys still were keeping to your long-term plan, even with everything that was going on, or was it just communication, or was that like more you and your team, I guess, that were like, we're going straight forward?
More us and our team. I mean, we obviously kept the board informed, and they were concerned about how we were taking care of the members. So that was and that's always been very important to us, as is to any other credit union, but that was their main focus. So as long as we were taking care of the members, they were good. So, for example, we decided to remodel one of our branches, and because it really needed to be done. And the board was like, are you sure you want to do that? Do you think you're going to have this branch long term? And I thought about it, and I was like, no, we need to do this. It needs to be done. Even if we have a lease with Farmers for that space, even if Farmers decides tomorrow that they're going to give up a lot of their space, it doesn't mean that we still don't need the branch, because we've done that in other places. But I thought, no, this is the perfect time to do it. There's hardly anybody in the facility.
Right.
Because Farmers has everybody working from home. So if we want to do it, this is the time to do it. So we just pushed forward.
I love that. That's good stuff there. So I'm a big believer in that we were kind of shaped by those people we choose to surround ourselves with. Who are those folks that you've surrounded yourselves with, and how have they helped you along the way in your career?
Oh, boy. Are you talking internally or externally from the
I would say both. How about that?
Okay. Externally, I've always been a big believer that you need to get out. You need to get out of your credit union. You need to attend conferences. You need to meet people. You need to network. And so I started out in public accounting. So I met a lot of credit union people over the years. And from those connections, we've developed CUSOs, joined other CUSOs. Constellation, our digital services platform that we're working on, that was from another CUSO that we belong to. So, and then just keeping those tight contacts with people over the years, other CEOs, has been really beneficial for me. When you run into a problem, it's great to be able to reach out to these people, because if they've already been through it, why reinvent the wheel?
Right. It's one of my favorite things about the credit union community is that everybody is so willing to have conversations and help, right? Like, I mean, I think in other industries, people just can't understand that we can reach out to another CEO and they'll be like, sure, let me help. So,
exactly. Hey, I'm looking for this type of a vendor. Who do you suggest? And then you've got a list that you could start with of people that are already working with these people. So it really makes a difference. And then internally, I think we have a great team. There are people that a couple of them I've worked with since I started at the credit union. So, and that was in 96. Not to date myself, but that's all right. I don't, at this point, I don't care.
Hey, but we want your experience. That's why you're here. So.
Exactly. So that's been really, really beneficial, and we are working with an outside vendor to even develop that relationship better, DDJ Myers, to really strengthen our strategic process and the relationship that we have, and being able to have those difficult conversations. It's hard, especially when you are CEO, for people to say, you need to do this, or
right.
I don't agree with that. And so we're really trying to encourage people to be able to step up and say those things. And I think that's really important, because you don't want to be sitting off on your little hillside or something, thinking you're making all these great decisions, and your team's like, oh, that's just really stupid, Laura.
That's a great point that I know many have struggled with. I mean, Dee Dee's awesome. It's cool that you're bringing her in. The idea that, I mean, how have you created, I guess, that environment, throughout your tenure to make so that your team knows they can come to you or even say, we disagree, so that you're not, blindsided? Because I mean, that also, to me, that's also a big part of leading, is you're trying to bring people along and you want them to be involved in buy in as well. It can't just be all your vision, correct? So
exactly. I completely agree. And your capacity changes as you move up in the organization too. So the things that I used to do, I can't necessarily do anymore. Other people have to take up that mantle and do that themselves. So, and we're actually working with Peter Myers. Yeah, okay, I want to make sure I tell you that. But, well, and it's really hard to say to somebody, okay, you can disagree with me. You've got to create an opportunity for that to happen. And in the day-to-day, you can say that all day long, just like you say you have an open door, but people don't always take advantage of it. And it's very challenging. One of the stories I've shared with our staff when we've done onboarding is we've had people over the years that have come in from bigger companies. And one gentleman I remember, his name was John, had worked previously at Apple.
Okay.
And what he had been taught there, I don't know if it's still that way today, but at the time, you don't look up when people pass you in the hall if they are above you in the food chain.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And so we would walk by each other in the hallway. We're a small organization, 200 employees. And I would always say, hi, John. And he'd be like, I was like, what's wrong with John? And I was told, oh, well, he's not used to having conversations with anybody that's higher up than him in an organization. That's not how he was treated. And I was like, oh, no, we're not like that here.
Oh, no.
So please. So there are some people that feel very comfortable coming into my office and talking to me, and other people would not do that. So you're just trying to create that space for them to feel comfortable, but it is a long process. It is not simple.
I wanted to circle back. It's interesting how the different cultures from different organizations, right? And then people come into the credit union community and we tend to be a little more open. So I kind of want to go back to something that I skipped over in the beginning. And it's this idea that you've grown the credit union. You mentioned the deposits that have been coming in, and you talked a little bit about the, maybe stepping up the digital services, but with more scale. How do you keep the focus still? I'll go back to one of the things I think we learned more than anything over this past year, if we needed a reminder, is that every member is different and has a different situation going on, right?
Right.
How do you still keep that focus as you're a $1 billion credit union to make sure that you're still serving all the members? And maybe for you in particular, like as a seg-based credit union too, where my guess is the agents may be different than some of the other members in the credit union just from their needs, right?
Completely. So we've been trying to balance that. And we did expand our field of membership a bit by adding the ACC, the American Consumer Council, because we were having that struggle with deposits. So we had been working on this before the pandemic, but we wanted to have an ability to bring in deposits to fill in the gap we had between the borrowers and the savers. So definitely trying to do both ends. It is very challenging. And with our closeness with farmers, we've always considered that an advantage because we feel like we really know our members. So we can take more risks. We'll make up to a $400,000 unsecured loan to an agent to buy another agency, which is, most people wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, but that is something where we feel, and we've taken losses, don't get me wrong. But, But we feel it's a good risk to take. So those are the things, when you think about, and I'm probably not answering your question, but when you think about expanding your field of membership, those are the things that keep me up at night, because you're talking about changing your risk profile. And will that make sense for the organization? Are you still going to be able to help all of your members? But we are very focused on the membership. We always tell people, do the right thing for the member and try to make it right. And when you're dealing with salespeople, you also need to understand that people will tell you whatever they can tell you to get what they want. And I totally understand that, from looking at your own self, you would try to do the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
But, we really try to focus on what can we do for the member? What can we do to make it right? How can we help them? If we don't have to charge off your loan, we'd rather not do that. We want to work with you as much as we can. So I still think that that's really important, even as we grow, that we want to maintain that. Now, whether we can will be the big question.
That's the test, right?
Yes,
so,
for sure.
That leads me to something that I've been asking this season is, for all of us in credit unions, it's not tough to find purpose in credit unions, but how do you, and this kind of talking about serving the member, I think ties right into this, but how do you both professionally and personally make sure that you're kind of keeping that purpose constant, because from time to time we do veer off, right, as individuals. So,
right, yeah, no, and that has been very challenging this past year. It's been stressful, just dealing with all of the disruption, the diversity, the equity, inclusion piece. With George Floyd and the Asian issues that we've had as well. So we're trying to address all of those things. And plus, like we were saying before, keeping your credit union on track for your strategic plan. So
absolutely.
We continue to communicate with our team. We have a monthly staff meeting. So we have standing items on the agenda. We do it an employee point of view, which has been very interesting and eye-opening for a lot of people.
Was that something you just recently started doing, or is it something you've been doing for a while?
Well, we've been working on the DEI piece, so we have someone who's tasked with that. But after the George Floyd, I call it murder, but whatever you want to call it.
Murder's the word I use also. I know.
Okay.
The same one Jill uses. So.
We took the opportunity to have an open forum, a town hall meeting, and talk about these issues and really open up and have our team share their experiences, because my experience is different than your experience. And I grew up one way as a white woman. Other people grow up differently, even if they're white, they're Black, they're Asian. They may have had some of the same experiences I did growing up, but I don't know. I don't share those experiences. So to hear some of the stories from people, it was heartbreaking. Some of the stories, we had one woman share that her son was walking to school. She lived in downtown LA, and hopefully I get this right, but he was constantly stopped by the police. We're talking an 11, 12-year-old boy with a backpack because they thought he was dealing drugs, and he was just going back and forth to school. And it happened repeatedly.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's not an experience that my son had. And as a person, you don't think about those things because it's just not an experience you've had. So to have them share those experiences, I think opened a lot of people's eyes. We're very diverse, particularly because we're based in the LA area. So many people think we really don't have an issue. And it's like, well, I get that, but I want the employees to know that we take this seriously and that we're talking about it. We want to give them a forum to talk about it and, make them feel comfortable. You want your employees to stay until they're ready to retire. I mean, I know that's not realistic, but, we have great employees and they take care of our members really well. And I just think, it's all about caring for if we don't care for our employees, they're not going to care for our members.
Absolutely. That is a great point there. A big picture question. Is there something that you believe credit unions need to do differently or maybe better for us to stay relevant? You mentioned you're in LA.
Oh, yeah.
You see all the change that's happening, right? I mean, there is disruption from what I would say are non-bank players even that are coming into our backyard, right? So
yes.
Is there something you think we have to do a better job of?
Well, everything, I guess. I mean, I'll tell you what our biggest challenges have been on the digital piece. It is really hard to compete with a Chase or a Bank of America on their digital piece. And I know that they're pulling in more younger members from that perspective because of those offerings. And we don't have $16 billion to spend to update our digital platform, right? So, definitely, I think as credit unions, we need to continue to work together, do the CUSOs and that type of thing, and really pool our funds. That was our big impetus with Constellation. It's like, we're going to pool our funds and make this happen. So I think that's really important. We've also invested in the Open Your Eyes campaign. with CUNA and to get the word out about what a credit union is, because most people you talk to, I didn't know what a credit union was. My dad's company had a credit union. He never joined.
Absolutely.
So I just, we keep trying to do that, support the league and the lobbying efforts and that type of thing. But I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer because you don't know what the future holds. You're trying to constantly look out and see those things. But it is very challenging competing with what the banks offer,
Okay, now I have to ask, like you mentioned, your dad's company had a credit union. You didn't know what a credit union was. I didn't either. I grew up in Michigan, and if you mention credit unions, most people think you had to belong to the UAW to be a part of the credit union, right? 2 questions. What did you want to be when you were growing up? And when was that point where you were like, credit unions, this could be a career, right? Like, you're like, I think I could stick around this group of folks.
Well, when I was growing up, I grew up in Iowa. Okay. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a teacher, and then I found out how much teachers made, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that."
You don't want to do that one.
I am married to a teacher. I will tell you that. And then when I got into high school, I liked accounting, so I ended up getting my degree in accounting, getting my CPA, and I went into public accounting. Out of college, I worked for the FDIC as a bank examiner, and then I moved to public accounting. And the firm that I went to work for specialized in auditing credit unions, and so I stayed there. When we moved out to California, I joined another public accounting firm that specialized in credit unions. And the previous position I had came up when the other CEO had to leave the organization due to an illness. And then when he retired, I took over for his position. So that's how I got here. But it was always great working with credit unions. The people were always so nice, and you could share things with different clients, and it's just I think it's just a great industry.
I couldn't agree more. What was the inspiration to become the CEO of Farmers Insurance Federal Credit Union?
Well, when you're kind of a type A person, you have lots of visions and ideas of where you want to go. And I really like working for a credit union that's a little more closed, again, to that point where you really know the members.
Yeah.
And you have a good relationship with them. I think it gets to be more challenging. I feel for people that run community credit unions, because that to me is much more, it's all challenging today. I don't know what the heck I'm saying, but I think it is a little more challenging from that perspective. But I've never worked for a community credit union, so that's just speculation on my part.
They might think the same about you with the closed membership, right?
Exactly.
How you mentioned coming to the credit union before you were the CEO. Has the inspiration changed at all from the point of where you're part of the team? Not saying that you're not part of the team now, but now you're the leader of the team. So once you got that CEO chair, did the inspiration change at all?
That's a really good question. And it wasn't that long ago. No, I think when you have a vision for something, you just want to see it carried through. And, I thought we have a really good organization. We've always been very well capitalized, return value to our members. And you just want to keep that going, but even kind of ramp it up from a perspective. The digital's always been really important to me. We've always, over the years, we've jumped into mobile and then jumped back out because it didn't work. So, trying to instill in people, let's try it.
Yeah.
I used to go to conferences and they would talk about this new technology. Who's interested? And I'd always be over there. Oh, we're interested. We're interested. And our IT guys would be like, put your hand down. We're not doing that.
Oh, that's interesting. So people on my team are probably listening to this also and saying the same thing. I'm always like, let's try new ideas, right?
Exactly.
So any hacks for the leader out there who wants to do more, to whether it's bring along your team, bring along your board, get more people to buy in so you can do more fun stuff?
Oh, well, board's a challenge, so I'm not touching that one. I just think, I try to send out reading and that type of thing that hits me interested, and we worked with our members development company. We got training on being a future thinker, a futurist through the Institute for the Future. And so we're continuing to work with them a bit through MDC and looking at signals, they call them. Things that are happening outside of the industry that could impact us. And I love those types of things that really get you thinking differently. How would that impact us? And what should we do? Or does it inspire something else? And I think that's what's been hard this last year when we've been stuck. We can't go to conferences, and virtual conferences, I think, are very challenging because I don't like to sit that long.
It's such an interesting thing, right? Because like if you and I were going to a conference, like if we were heading to GAC in person, we're blocking that off our schedule.
Yep.
My guess is if we signed up for this one, sorry, Kuna, we really didn't block a lot. We tried to jump on when we could and stuff, right? Or whatever.
Exactly.
So you're still distracted, right?
Exactly. And so that's what I tell people too, is that when you go to these conferences, just be open to thinking.
Yeah.
You don't have the day-to-day stuff. You don't have the calls, the emails, the interruptions. Just be there and allow your mind to go. So you can really be more big picture. And that's hard for some people, but I just really think you get a lot of inspiration. You get the time to really think, and that's one of the things that Peter Myers has taught us, that you need to set aside this time for deep thinking, because it's not just going to happen. And he's so right.
Absolutely. Oh, no. Our brains are busy, right? Like if you don't give the space. One of the things that Jill and I talked about very early on, and I give her full credit for this, is both of us traveled quite a bit before. And one of the things that she said, I remember a couple months in, we were on a morning walk, and she said, I miss sitting on the airplane and not being bothered. Like where I can just think. I can just, I'm not looking at email. There's that little period of time where you're not connected, right? So she goes, I kind of miss that space. And I'm like, yeah, we do have to create that, ourselves, right? And it sounds like that's what Peter was talking about as well.
Yeah, and I completely agree with her, because I used to get all of my reading done on a plane. I do review projects for Western CUNA Management School, and I would take those with me on the plane, and I would get through them all. And this year it was like, oh man, I got to find time.
When am I going to do this? Right?
Time in the weekend to do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
I need my plane back. Is there something that, like, if you never heard again about being a great leader, that one that makes your skin crawl, where people are like, you have to be this to be a good leader? Is there something that
I was told years ago I had to play golf.
Okay. Yeah.
And drink coffee.
Oh,
and I don't do either.
How do you not drink? How do you wake up? Just full of life instantly? Oh, okay. All right.
If I'm out and about and there's a Starbucks, I will go get what I call frou-frou coffee. So like a mocha or a cappuccino or something like that. But otherwise, no. I love the smell of coffee. I just don't like the taste of it.
Outside of credit unions, what does Laura do to recharge? And what does that work-life integration look like to you?
Boy, who has time for that? I love to read. And that is one of the things that I really miss. I've been trying to make more time to read outside of work. But, when you work from home a bit, I go in about 3 days a week. I'm quarantining right now because we were back in Iowa visiting my mom. But, I've really tried to set aside more time to read. I enjoy gardening, and it's a year-long thing in LA, which I didn't really like at first. I miss the change of seasons when everything kind of dies and you don't have to deal with it. But I find that very relaxing because, again, it gives your mind time to rest. And my daughter has a new puppy, so we've been playing with the puppy and that type of thing. But, we miss traveling. We enjoy doing that. But I've been learning that I need to set aside more time for me.
Yeah.
That when the day's over, you need to walk away. It'll be there tomorrow. And because that's, I'm a better person when I do that, when I get the sleep, when I do other things outside of work. Again, it gives you that time for that deep thinking that you don't do otherwise. It's just all the distractions need to go away.
Absolutely. You kind of said it earlier. When you're working from home also, it's tough to turn off the office, right? When it's still sitting right there. So
it is. I completely agree.
It wouldn't be the CUInsight Experience podcast without some rapid fire questions. So the questions are rapid. Your answers do not have to be. Okay. So and there's one that I'm excited to ask you now since you're a reader, but it's coming up. Was there something in your career life that you said no to, that when you look back at now, you're like, wow, I'm sure glad I said no to that?
I was interviewing for a position and I said no to it. And the credit union is no longer in existence.
That was a good no, that's for sure. Has there been a recent purchase? It seems like you mentioned your daughter's puppy. Like Pelotons and puppies were the purchases of the year, it seems like. But was there a recent purchase that you made that you didn't know you needed, but now you're like, I couldn't live without it?
Oh, good Lord. I love fashion. So.
Oh, There's
purses, shoes. I don't need any of it. And my husband will tell you because I've invaded his closet.
Of course, yeah. He's like, you don't need more.
No.
What you mentioned at first wanting to be a teacher and then getting into the accounting side, but what were you like in high school, and did you get in any memorable trouble that you're willing to share with us?
Oh God, probably not. I played volleyball when I was in high school, which I loved. I wouldn't say that I was a great player, but I really enjoyed it. I could not serve overhand. I will tell you that. So I served underhand. I was a good underhand server, but certainly very different from an overhand. I love sports. I'm married to someone who does not like sports at all.
That's
so
funny.
It's
Yeah.
a little different experience. I don't know. Small town, small high school.
Yeah.
Worked at McDonald's.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Love their French fries.
Who doesn't? Right. So I'm excited to ask you this question because you said you like to read. What are you reading? And is there that book that either you've recommended, you think everybody should read, you've gifted to others?
Necessary Endings. By, who is it by? Oh, this is bad. You could look it up. It's a fantastic book on understanding people.
Okay. I've not read that book, so
Yeah.
we will add it to the link to the show notes for sure.
Really good. We have our management training program internally, and we always have them read that book. And I refer back to it all the time.
What are you currently reading? Anything good?
It's not in the room, but it's about meditation and how it changes your mind.
Absolutely.
So that's really interesting.
Meditation was one of the things that probably when I needed it most, I got away from last year. So I've been on about a 4-month streak now getting back to it. So, but yeah, for some reason last year, I just quit doing a bunch of stuff that's really healthy for me. And it's, I don't call it COVID fatigue or something. So
I get that.
the random question, what's the greatest album of all time?
Oh man. Well, I love Metallica.
I grew up on Metallica.
And Enya has some great albums too. Those are probably a couple of my favorite.
No kidding. That's awesome. My very first concert was a Metallica concert, actually.
Oh, you're lucky. Mine was probably Doobie Brothers.
I'll never forget it. I was about, my mom loves when she listens to the podcast, so she loves when she gets shout outs. But me and 2 little friends and probably freshman or sophomore year of high school, my mom drove us down in her Chevy Cavalier station wagon and got rear-ended right in front of the Joe Louis Arena and starts yelling at the guy. And if you remember, early Metallica concerts didn't look like us, right? So it was, and here we were like in the back seat just shaking like, oh my God, we're going to get killed. So but we made the concert. Someone else's mom picked us up and the rest is history, I guess.
That's really nice. I got to see Metallica here in LA and at the Forum. And I just remember before the lights went down, people were smoking pot around us. And I was like, you guys are pretty gutsy. This is before it was legal anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, the whole place, I'm sure. So,
for sure.
So there is a question that I didn't send you in advance. When you hear the word success, who is the first person that comes to mind and why?
Oh, boy. I was always a huge fan of Katharine Graham.
Okay.
Who ran the Washington Post.
Absolutely.
And her life was very interesting and kind of cut short. I mean, not short, but, and I'm a fan of Jamie Dimon, if I'm pronouncing his name right, at Chase, and what he's done over his career. But yeah, I always thought it'd be cool to meet Katharine Graham.
That's cool. I love it. That is the first for that answer on the show, and I think it's fantastic. So, Laura, I thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to be on the show. The last question I have for you: do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners or an ask?
Wow, I don't think so. I love the Nike saying "just do it." So I highly encourage everyone to just do it.
Just do it. That's credit unions. Thank you again, my friend. We will link to everything we talked about in the show notes. If people have questions or review or want to get in touch, email, Twitter, LinkedIn. Do you have a favorite communication?
Oh, probably email.
All right. We will link to that then too. Thank you again, Laura. I hope you have an amazing day and be well.
You too. Thank you. Stay safe.
Before we go, I would just like to take a moment to thank all of you for listening today. We wouldn't get to have this much fun doing this if you didn't listen. And again, a big thank you to Laura for taking the time out of her busy schedule to share these experiences with all of us. And a huge thank you to our sponsor, PSCU. Our friends at PSCU have been longtime partners and supporters of ours at CUInsight.com. So please make sure to click on their link in the show notes, give them some love, see everything they have going on to help out the credit union community. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player, Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, the list goes on. Wherever you listen, we're there. And again, thank you all for listening. I hope you have a great day and be well, friends.